What's happening, people? It's your boy here, the Boxing Lowdown, for episode number 80 of the Boxing Lowdown podcast, man. We're delighted to be joined, as always. I've got my co-host with me in the building, Laurie from AFTV. What's happening, man?
It's all good, man. It's all good. As you can see, I'm live and direct at AFTV Studios here in North London. And yeah, man, it's busy, but I'm ready, man. Hit me with it.
You know what? We're just going to jump straight into it today, man. Shout out to everybody, first of all, that joins the stream. Don't forget to hit the like button on the way in, share the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And shout out to the new subscribers as well, man. Big you guys up. Hopefully you guys can join the stream. Or if you catch it later, leave a comment. Let us know that you're here. Let us know what you think of the podcast. And let's get going, man. So listen, before we get into this weekend's fights, because mainly this show today is just going to focus on the two events taking place this weekend. We did do a stream after the Fury and White fight, and we did, give our thoughts and opinions on it. But I just thought we'll do a little segment here in the show quickly, just to touch on anything like you may want to discuss, since obviously we did that video. Dillian Whyte has done an interview. I did a video on that. I haven't heard your opinion on that yet. Obviously, we've seen Tyson Fury do a couple of interviews. He was on a show yesterday where he was speaking about retirement still. So just kind of clear that up, just the last bit of aftermath from Fury and White before we move on. Big up Stefan in the building, my brother. And also Harvey is here. Good evening to you, bro. Laurie, I'll take it to you.
Right. You know what? After the fight, and obviously I made some comments in the immediate aftermath of the fight. And then the next day, I hooked up with you live on stream and we discussed it again. And since then, I was thinking to myself, am I being a bit too harsh on Dillian and not giving the Gypsy King enough credit? So what I did, I decided to go back and watch the fight and go back and watch some of my comments again. And I would say that having watched the fight again and having considered what I said very carefully, I'm prepared to say that, you know what, whilst I was still don't get me wrong, I'm still very disappointed with the effort that Dillian put forward. I perhaps have to be a bit more creditable to the Gypsy King and say that the reason, a big part of the reason why Dillian didn't perform was because of Tyson Fury. So I think I need to sort of adjust my settings a little bit and give the Gypsy King more credit than I have done, because if you looked at the aftermath show and then the comments that I made in the immediate aftermath of the fight, I was quite scathing of Dillian and I didn't really give the Gypsy King enough credit. So I want to adjust that slightly. However, I still maintain that Dillian was poor. I maintain that mentally he checked out after a couple of rounds. And I would go as far as to say that, especially when you consider Dillian's body language before the fight, when you contrast that with his previous fights and how he's behaved previously, I'm starting to become of the firm opinion that did Dillian really believe that he could beat the Gypsy King? And I'm starting that he could win, or he didn't go in there with the right attitude and the right confidence to win the fight. Because what you got to look at, Daryl, when you're assessing a fighter's mental capacity going into a fight is, we've seen Dillian in several fights before, yeah? And he's normally very aggressive, very alpha male, very in your face. And if you look at his body language with the Fury fight, he didn't attend any of the press conferences or engage much in the build-up, in the lead-up to the fight. And then we saw him at the press conference and then on the scales, he was very passive. I mean, I said to you in your aftermath show that at one stage, him and Tyson Fury were basically feeling each other up on the scales. And that was so unlike Dillian. So when you get a fighter acting out of character, whether it be too aggressive or not aggressive enough, that's normally a sign, man, that they're not going to perform in the ring. And so it proved.
I highlighted that to DS. I'm sure he'll join a bit later. I highlighted that to him, and what he said to me was, he was like, "Don't worry, Dillian knows how to turn it on. I'm not concerned about it." And I thought, yeah, you're right, because we have seen that from Dillian in the past, where he can argue in an empty room. It seemed like at times. But what made you change your mind? Was it the fact that you're more appreciative of what Fury did, or was it you thought White had put a little bit more effort in than you thought? Like, which one was it, or was it a bit of both?
Yeah, it was a bit of both. I mean, I happen to think that Dillian's approaching shot fighter status if he's not there already. If you look at some of his cognitive functions, i.e. the balance and his gait, his inability to hold a shot well, those are all sort of classic traits of a guy that's a shot fighter. And you have to say that, listen, a couple of fights before the Fury fight, he was knocked out cold by Alexander Povetkin, a 41-year-old Alexander Povetkin at that. And if you look at some of the previous fights he'd had, the ones with Marius Wack, remember that? He looked awful in that fight. True, give Dillian credit, in the rematch against Povetkin, he looked a lot better. But I still think, man, there's a lot of wear and tear there, man. And I think when asked to rise to the occasion against Fury, he simply didn't have it. Some people are suggesting that, you know what I mean, he was nowhere near there. Some people are even suggesting it was a borderline fixed fight. I don't agree with none of that. I think that's nonsense. But I do think Dillian is physically impaired. He's had a long career, a hard career, several hard fights. And I think you're starting to see, man, the damage, you know what I mean? And like I said, I don't think his confidence was all the way there. I really don't. I don't think that he truly believed deep down that he was going to beat Fury. And I think basically his tactics suggested that going southpaw in the first round, that was ridiculous. You saw that. I mean, he changed back to orthodox by the next round, so they totally abandoned that tactic. And I just thought he was poor. But we do have to give credit to Tyson Fury, because at the end of the day, he obviously made Dillian look that bad. I've never seen Dillian look that bad before. So with that being said, you have to give Tyson Fury some credit.
Big shout out, first of all, to all you guys in the chat here. Stefan, Francisco, I see you. YK22, I see you as well, bro. He's put it, can I donate to the channel? We're not able to. I tried to turn on the super chat, but what you need to turn on the super chat is you need to have over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. I've got that. But also you need to have a certain amount of watch views on the channel as well. And I'm just below that. So soon I think that'll be able to happen. But at the moment, I'm not able to turn the super chat on or for any donations yet. So it'll come. But big up YK22. Thank you for the comment there. Stefan here has said, I might be in the minority, but I think that Usyk would beat Fury. Fury's feet have slowed down massively. I think Usyk could get in and out of range and do enough to get a decision.
You know what? I'm intrigued by that fight. Should Usyk, of course, get past Joshua in the rematch, which, let's face it, he would be favored to do. But I would be intrigued to see that fight. To me, the way Fury's body language is and some of the interviews he's given about Usyk in the past, he doesn't seem like he wants that fight. Not suggesting for 1 second that he's scared of Usyk, but he doesn't seem thoroughly motivated by that fight. Whereas if you mention Joshua's name, his eyes light up. But it's not the same for Usyk. Now, could that be because he's already assessed the style? I mean, I saw an interview that Tyson Fury gave. It was over the internet over the past couple of days. And he was talking about one of his previous fights, the fight with Steve Cunningham, who was a cruiserweight, went up to heavyweight. And he was talking on that stream about the difficulties that Steve Cunningham presented him with. Even he was describing him as a lighter, smaller opponent that he found difficult to get to grips with. Now, that was a few years back, the Cunningham fight. So you can imagine if Usyk is in there, he would be presenting some of those same problems and more. Because let's be honest, Usyk is a better fighter than Steve Cunningham. So could that be an indicator that Tyson doesn't really fancy that Usyk fight? I mean, he said he's retired. I'm not convinced about the retirement. I know he's maintained it since. He's given interviews suggesting that this really is the end of his career, but I somewhat doubt.
Give up the belt then. Give up the belt. I haven't seen you give up the belt yet. Until you do that, then, then I'll be like, okay, maybe he is thinking about doing it. But while you're holding on to that belt, I can't take that retirement talk seriously, man. I can't.
Yeah. I mean, listen, this is something that we've heard Tyson Fury say many times before. When he's talked about retirement and that's it and all the rest of it. So he's been talking about retirement way since after the Klitschko fight. Remember when he won the Klitschko fight, he won the title? He said, I've got nothing else to prove. I won the title. That's it. No more motivation. And then he went missing for a couple of years. That story is well documented. So man, you really don't know what to trust when it comes out of Tyson Fury's mouth. Let's be honest. But I would say that he will be back, especially if he thinks he can get Joshua in the ring. I don't think he's that keen on Usyk for whatever reason.
Yeah, and a few people in the comments here agreeing. Big up Ash. He's saying the same thing. Tyson is only coming back for AJ. Danger, my bro. He's put here, AJ is the only thing to get him out of retirement if he is actually retired. We've got here
Question
Harvey.
for you, though. If he does retire, what does that say about his legacy? Is his legacy complete?
Well,
I think it is.
Here's a comment from Stefan. He's put here, talk of Fury being the best heavyweight of all time is beyond embarrassing, by the way. Gareth A. Davis said he would have been untouchable in any era. Listen, I think to answer your question, I think, listen, Fury, for me, he will not go down as he certainly won't go down as the best heavyweight of all time. All that is nonsense. Absolute is blasphemy to the best heavyweight side. He's not even the best heavyweight that this country's ever produced. But
exactly.
what I will
give you a name straight away. Lennox Lewis would have beaten Tyson
exactly.
Fury.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. So listen, Fury, I reckon he would have given any heavyweight a problem for sure. Like when you got that sort of size and stature and his ability, I think he would have given any heavyweight a problem. And that says a lot anyway, in terms of how good you actually are, for me to say that. But in terms of ranking him amongst the top 10 or anything like that, no way. He's made 4 title defenses in his career. Was it 4 title or 4? He's had 4 championship fights, should I say. He ain't had that many title defenses, man. When
you get cheerleaders like Gareth A. Davis saying this sort of stuff, you really do have to wonder to yourself, what does this guy know about boxing? You know what I mean? I've said it on this show many times. This guy came into journalism covering MMA, and he's a charlatan. He doesn't know anything about boxing. You skim below the surface, bro, and it doesn't take you long to realize that this guy knows nothing really about boxing. Yeah, he might be able to quote a few stats and figures from current day, and yes, he's probably researched a few of the older fighters that would, enable him to have a conversation. But what I'm saying is he doesn't have a deep knowledge of the sport. And when he says something like that, it just makes you know straight away that this guy is not grounded in boxing. And also that he chats cap. He's not a real dude when it comes to boxing, bro. No. Many times, and, people will have their own opinions, man. This guy is not a good journalist. He's simply not. He's a cheerleader. He caps for fighters, in particular Tyson Fury and Billy Joe Saunders. I mean, I saw an embarrassing exchange he had
with Ade.
With Ade, yeah, when he was trying to tell Ade that Dillian is a better fighter than Anthony Joshua, and I was just like, bro, shut up. And the only reason he was doing that, Daryl, it was obvious. He knew that Dillian probably wasn't going to beat Fury, so he wanted to be able to say after that Tyson Fury's beaten the best heavyweight around in Dillian Whyte, which we all know is cap. You know what I mean? I reckon if you polled 100 people before that fight, right, 99 probably would have said that Tyson Fury is going to beat Dillian. And listen, I know some people are going to mention this. On your show, in I Dillian, you know, Darren, and I know that the only reason why I even said it at the time, I only picked Dillian because I was playing devil's advocate. I did give Dillian a puncher's chance, but deep down I knew that there was no way that Dillian was going to beat Fury. And so did everybody else. So for Gareth A. Davis to be haranguing, because that's what he was doing, he was getting off on Ade, you know what I mean, trying to embarrass the guy, you know what I mean, saying that Dillian's a better fighter than Joshua, he's in a better play. He knew that was absolute cap. But the reason why, like I said, is that he wanted to embellish Tyson Fury. That's what he was doing. Guy's a clown, man.
He embarrassed himself, Gareth A. Davis, man.
Yeah, he's a clown.
And I don't know, I don't know many real boxing fans that take him seriously like that. It's only
seems lost out, man. Yeah, man. I mean, listen, it's only this week, people. I had a conversation with a well-renowned boxing journalist, and obviously our conversation was off the record, but he expressed to me that Gareth A. Davis is seen as a bit of a joke among real boxing journalists. And you can see why. Guy's an absolute straight up clown. Go back to
you still there? Yeah, I got you. It cut out for a minute there.
Yeah, I think it was on your end because my Wi-Fi seems to be quite strong.
Okay. So yeah, anyway, what I wanted to say was, that kind of, I want to kind of wrap that up because we did speak in depth about this, and there is more to talk about, and we've only got an hour today. Huge fights we're looking forward to this weekend. Big up to everybody in the comments as well, man. Not able to read them all out because there's a lot of comments, which is a good thing. That's always a good sign. So keep them coming. I can see them all. So big up to everyone. But talk about this weekend, man. First of all, Shakur Stevenson against Oscar Valdez. Now, really looking forward to this one, man. Unification fight, 2 unbeaten fighters. You've got Shakur Stevenson. For me, has the highest ceiling out of all of the young talent in the US right now, which is a big statement to make because there's a lot of talent out there in the US with terms of the young fighters. You've got Gervonta Davis, you've got Devin Haney, you've got Teofimo Lopez, you've got all these guys, Ryan Garcia. I think Shakur Stevenson could possibly have the highest ceiling of all of them. And he's jumping into a fight here against an experienced guy, Oscar Valdez. Shakur Stevenson is the favorite. But one thing that I thought about today, and I want to get your opinion on it, because I know you're going to pick Stevenson to win. But one thing I want you to consider, Laurie, is the fact that Shakur Stevenson has had it all his own way as a pro so far. He's never had to really face any sort of adversity. He's dominated every fight. Whereas Oscar Valdez at 31, he's had the experience. He's been in a fight where he's not been the favorite. So he's had that sort of pressure on him. He's suffered a broken jaw in a fight before. Remember that? Suffered a bad broken jaw, prevailed, suffered cuts, prevailed through that. Shakur Stevenson hasn't had to go through any of that. Is that a concern for Stevenson and his team going into this fight, considering that Valdez has been through the mill and has come out and has still prevailed, whereas Shakur Stevenson hasn't had to face anything like that and could possibly face that on Saturday? Is that a concern for Stevenson for you?
I think if you're Stevenson, it's not really a concern. I think if you're Stevenson, you're going to draw confidence from that and say, listen, I've been that good. No one's been able to really test me yet. So that's an indication of just how talented I am. I do get your point, though. Until Stevenson goes to the well, there's always going to be question marks as to A, how good his chin is, and B, how big his heart is. So I can perfectly understand those people who would be raising those question marks, because until those things really do happen, we don't really know. What I would say is, if you only got to look back a couple of fights ago when he fought the African guy, Nakatila, and he did get some criticism following that fight. People said, you didn't engage as much as we would have liked to. It wasn't a very exciting fight. But then you got to look at the other side of things, which is that he won pretty much every round. And we knew before, and even more so since, that Nakatila is a very dangerous guy. Big puncher, big, strong guy, confident. You saw how it absolutely destroyed, what's the guy's name, the Mexican guy that he fought? Burchell.
Yeah.
He absolutely mollywhopped Burchell. So when you contrast that performance with his performance against Shakur Stevenson, you've got to say that's even more plus points to Shakur Stevenson. Because I don't think he won around in that fight.
Was ruined by Valdez, though, wasn't he? Let's be real. Valdez ruined him. So Burchell weren't the same going into that fight against Nakatila.
No, I'm talking about Shakur's performance against Nakatila.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that Nakatila looked red hot against Burchell. And he looked dangerous in spots against Shakur. Remember, he tagged him a couple of times early. But once Shakur, he made the adjustments, he boxed his ears off, really. Won pretty much every round against a guy, like I said, was a dangerous opponent. So if you look at fights like that, I think if you're Shakur Stevenson, you're going to draw confidence from that. You know what I mean? And then look at his standing record as a pro and as an amateur, Olympic silver medalist, won several fights on the road as an international, boxing for America in various tournaments, winning gold medals and stuff like that. You have to say that this guy's talent is elite.
It is elite.
I wouldn't be too perturbed, to be honest.
It is elite, but you look at it, he's fighting in Vegas. It's going to be a strong Mexican crowd for Oscar Valdez over there, for sure. He's probably not going to get any favors from the judges, let's be real. And, Valdez, whatever you say about him, he's still a top fighter. He could potentially take Stevenson to the well, and we haven't seen what he's like in that well yet.
You're actually right. I have to say I don't see it, man. I think there's a clear disparity between the two fighters. I've watched quite a few Oscar Valdez fights. I mean, listen, I thought he lost his last fight to Robson Conceicao. I thought Robson Conceicao was robbed. In fact, it was a dual robbery because let's face it, that fight should never have taken place in the first place because we all know now that Oscar Valdez, or Oscar Valdez, as he's termed in some quarters, he failed a drugs test. I'm not buying any of that. It was.
Did you see the Blood, Sweat and Tears documentary, that first episode where he was talking about it? He looked really cut up, man. He looked really upset. He almost had me for a minute. He almost had me, Lloyd. I was just like, "Wow, man, I think you might be telling the truth here."
Well, you don't really believe that. I know you don't. That was nonsense. I thought that was corny, bro. You know what I mean?
It's good acting. Well, if it was acting, that was good acting. If that was good, if it was acting, it was good acting, man.
I don't believe him for 1 second, bro. And I believe he's been cheating for a while as well. You see, what you got to understand, Harold, is that when these guys get caught cheating, it doesn't mean to say it was just that fight they were cheating at. I often compare it to a shoplifter. You know what I mean? Just because he got caught with that bottle of wine walking out the store and apprehended by the store detectives, by no means that that's the first time he's done it. He's probably done it hundreds of times before, but that was the first time he got caught. And I believe that to be the case with Valpeds. You know what I mean? He probably didn't cycle off in time. He probably got that bit wrong.
Danger saying here,
so I don't believe him. Listen, some people
Danger saying here he doesn't think that he cheated. He said he don't think he cheated because he was terrible in that fight against Conceição. Don't think he cheated.
No, listen, man. For a start, you got to give Conceição credit, man. Conceição is a damn good fighter. He was unbeaten up until that point. He's Olympic gold medalist. The guy can box. And even with the cheating, I thought that Conceição won that fight clearly. Yes, to be fair to Valdez, he came back and he did win a few rounds late. But he was clearly outscored. And I must admit, it left a real bad taste in my mouth to see a guy that cheated in the first place, shouldn't even have been boxing for a world title, then gets a decision on the scorecards. And then, to make matters even worse, they erect a statue in his hometown for him. I'm like, bro, I thought cheats weren't supposed to prosper. So, was it Danger Limited says you don't think he cheated? Well, I beg to disagree. Strongly as well. I think guys are cheat, and I think he's been cheating for some time. Well, listen, let's see how good he looks on Saturday. I make Shakur Stevenson a strong favorite. In fact, the only doubt I've got in my mind is whether he will win handily on points or whether he'll get a stoppage. Shakur Stevenson's not a big one-punch hitter, but he does hit hard enough to gain people's respect, as you saw with Jamal Herring. And I just think that it might get to the stage where he's teeing off on Valdez, and it might come down to the corner. How much punishment are they allowing them to take?
Danger says, Dale, this is going to set you off, this comment here. Danger ain't been on the stream for long, I could tell. Because he said, but if he did cheat, that's the third in the Reynoso camp. So don't that mean Canelo is a cheat as well? Well, that's what Laurie's been preaching for that's what he's been preaching
as well.
The show. He's been preaching that, Danger. He's been saying that, bro. So, yeah. Listen, I think you're not giving. I think Stevenson is a strong favorite with the bookies, and rightly so. I think that his ceiling is, you know what I mean, he's got a great ceiling. He's got tremendous talent. There's hardly any flaws to his game. But I'm just worried about that being taken into deep water, how he'll react. I don't know. And I don't know if you're giving Valdez enough credit. We've picked against Valdez before, and we've seen him put in a great performance. He knows what he's stepping into.
When have I picked against Valdez before?
Burchell, we both did. We both picked against him.
Did I pick against him?
Yeah, we both did.
Did we? Okay, fair enough.
Against Burchell. And, you know, I'm not saying he's going to do that to Stevenson, but I think Stevenson will win, but I don't think it's going to be easy.
No, I'm not suggesting it's going to be easy, but I am suggesting that there's a clear disparity in skills. So if Oscar Valdez does win this fight, it probably is going to be by an inside the distance knockout or something like that. But from what I've seen of Shakur so far, his chin looks sturdy. I mean, he took a couple of shots from Nakatila, who's a hard puncher, and he didn't budge him. It's not like he was in trouble or anything like that. And I look back to his amateur career. Yes, I know we were amateurs, but I don't ever remember seeing any real weakness with him there. And if you just look at the guy, the way he operates within the ring, man, he does look like he knows what he's doing in there, man. And I just can't see Oscar Valdez beating him. I just can't. Listen, I know Oscar Valdez, despite what I've said about him with the drugs, I know he's a warrior. I know he will fight through the pain. We saw that when he fought Scott Quigg, who he went life and death with, by the way. He fought with
a broken that was the fight. He had a broken jaw in it, wasn't it?
Yeah, he fought with a broken. So listen, I give him credit for all that. But what I'm saying, skill for skill, and let's be honest, man, as we saw at the weekend, boxing primarily comes down to skills. There's a clear disparity between the skill set of Shakur Stevenson and the skill set of Oscar Valdez. And let's also take into account the ages of the two fighters, the careers they've had. I mean, Oscar Valdez, yes, he's unbeaten. He's had 30 fights, but he's been a pro for a long time now, man. You know what I mean? Some of that wear and tear could be catching up with him, whereas Shakur Stevenson only had 17 fights, pretty much won all of those at a canter, you have to say. I mean, look at in his last fight, he looked really, really good against Jamel Herring, who's a tried and tested opponent. And he's made those fights look easy. So you could say, man, he's probably not hit his prime yet, but he's kind of entering into that phase, man, where he really is coming into his own. And a fight like this is only going to get him to raise his levels. So I think there's a clear edge. I wouldn't even say edge, a clear. It's all about levels, bro. And I think Shakur Stevenson is a couple of levels above Oscar Valdez at this stage in his career. And I think we're going to see that.
Wow.
So.
Okay, quickly answer this. I know you've answered this before on the stream, but on the last stream that we did. But just quickly before we get back to Valdez and Stevenson, what you'd advise Dillian Whyte to do now? Because
well, I've said it on your.
He said he's not going to retire. So
yeah, if the question was, what would I advise Dillian to do? And it's very simple. If I was Dillian, I would advise him to retire. But we know he's not going to retire. He's actually said that. Listen, if I'm anything to do with Dillian, man, his next fights have got to be chosen with extreme care because, like I said, I'm starting to see things that worry me with Dillian, man. I don't think his punch resistance is all the way there. He's always had bad balance, and now it's shocking. Like I said, I think his cognitive functions have impaired somewhat, man. I watch these guys closely, bro. Having boxed myself, I know the signs to look out for. The balance is gone. The punch resistance seems to have deteriorated alarmingly. And he just doesn't look the same fighter. The confidence is clearly not the same. That's another sign of a shot fighter. I mean, let's look at it logistically, man. That punch that Dillian got knocked out with, effectively, he says it was a push, but we all saw what happened. Yes, there was a push, but he was on his way down to the floor. That punch connected with the side of Dillian's face. You know what I mean? So, to me, now listen, it's my opinion, but I don't think a punch like that should knock Dillian out. Yes, it was a good shot. Tyson Fury set it up nicely with a jab, so he disguised it. But the way he went down, man, I thought that was quite alarming. And then when he got up again, his legs were splayed. He just doesn't look like he's got his feet underneath him now. He looks to me like a guy that's shot. He's had a lot of hard fights. He's been knocked out 3 times now, all bad knockouts. And I have it on good authority there, man, that Dillian likes to spar hard. A lot of his sparring sessions are like fights. And I've been told, like I said, by people in the game, man, that he has had some wars in sparring that he's come out the wrong end of as well. Yeah. I've been told that on more than one occasion by people who are in the trade. And they've said to me that, listen, man, I've seen Dillian get in the work, get the business in sparring. So all these things, bro, they're cumulative. And I think what we're seeing now is a guy that is way, way past his best. What Tyson Fury just to illuminate that on the world stage.
Let's get back to Valdez and Stevenson, man. Francisco says here, Valdez is a good boxer with speed and power. Stevenson is the superior talent. Valdez is tough, but Stevenson's defense and counter-punching will be the difference. Stevenson on points by a comfortable margin. I said 116, 112 in my tweet. That sounds about right. Danger says here, do you think the body punching of the Reynoso camp could come into the fight, though? Because we've seen that body punching, and it is dangerous. I agree. I think Stevenson will win 116, 112. That's what I'm saying. That's my official prediction. But you know, Reynoso knows what he's doing. You know,
Yeah, he does. I also think that Shakur will dominate him, bro. Seriously, I don't even think this fight will not be close. It will not be close. I just look at. You see, you have to understand, Daryl, that the level where Shakur Stevenson is at the moment and where he is in his career, you know, he's going to be embracing fights like these. There'll be no fear from him. You know what I mean?
No.
He's going to go out there and dominate. He's looking to dominate Oscar Valdez, and I think he will. And I'm going to say this as well. Maybe I know some people may not agree. Deep down, I don't think Oscar Valdez wanted this fight, despite what he said on those pre-fight programs. I sincerely think that he did not want this fight. He wanted to go another route. They were talking about fighting Navarrete, and then things happened which caused this fight to be made with Shakur Stevenson. Some theories have been put forward to suggest that what happened with Terence Crawford suing Bob Arum and stuff like that. So maybe Bob Arum thought that, listen, because Terence Crawford and Shakur Stevenson at the time were top-ranked fighters, and I know that Terence Crawford and Shakur Stevenson were close. Maybe Bob Arum didn't want to smoke with another fighter in his camp, accusing him of not acting in his best interest. But there's a lot of people, man, who will tell you that Valdez and his people did not want this fight. I mean, Eddie Reynoso has come out and said since then that Shakur Stevenson has a style that they will find difficult. He said that, bro. You know what I mean? He's on the record as having said that. What does that tell you? That they know what they're up against.
Yeah, maybe they're just acknowledging. They know. I'm sure they do know.
Huh?
I'm sure they do know what they're up against. I'm sure they do. You know?
Yeah, and that's why they didn't want the fight. I sincerely believe they did not want the fight.
Harvey says here, and you know what, Harvey, this crossed my mind, you know. This actually crossed my mind, like, I think it was before, maybe yesterday or so. But we never got your top 15 middleweights, though. I remember that.
You know what? I did make the list, you know. I did. I'm just seeing if I've got some paperwork with me here.
Oh, he might have wrote it down already.
Canelo definitely did not make my top 10.
Oh, he didn't make it.
You know what I'll do, right? You know what I'll do? I don't appear to have it with me.
All right, we'll do another stream with that. We'll do a separate stream.
I promise you that next week I will deliver it, man. But I went through it and he was not anywhere near my top 10.
What? Not anywhere near it?
No.
What, undisputed middleweight champ? Not anywhere near the top 10.
No.
I can't wait for that.
What's Canelo's best win on his resume? What? Tell me that. What is his best win?
At middleweight.
Don't say to me Canelo because he didn't beat Canelo.
Well, at middleweight. What's his best thing at middleweight?
Yeah.
Well, who's he beat? Billy Joe?
The fact that you've got to be there thinking like that tells you.
Caleb
the
Plant.
fact that you're having to think deep like that suggests to me that. What's his best win?
What, at middleweight?
Yeah, he's only fought at middleweight. What's his best win?
Well, Triple G.
No, I'm saying, what is Triple G's best win?
Oh, yeah, we're talking about Triple G, ain't we? Sorry, yeah, of course. Sorry, my fault. Triple G's best win at middleweight. Well, yeah, we said this. Danny Jacobs.
Yeah, and what happened in the Danny Jacobs fight? Was there not a lot of people, myself included, who thought that Danny Jacobs won that fight?
David Lemieux was the best performance, I think, probably, but Jacobs probably the better name.
Okay. So on the strength of him beating Danny Jacobs and one or two other guys are in and around that ilk, you're telling me that he's an all-time great middleweight? No chance. Yeah,
sorry, Francisco. I meant to say Triple G, not Canelo. We were talking about Triple G in the top 15, not Canelo. It was Triple G. Apologies for getting confused, but the top 15 that we were talking about at the time was about Triple G, and if he made the top 15, so he was never undisputed middleweight champ. Of course not, because Canelo's a super middleweight anyway. So I got my wires crossed there, but yeah, the talk was about Triple G being in the top 10, 15 middleweights.
He's definitely not in my top 10.
Yeah, not in your top, nowhere near your top 10 either.
No. Yeah, there was easily 10 guys that have fought at middleweight that I consider to be better fighters than him. Okay. But you know what I'll do? Like I said, I did make the list, and I will present it next week. In fact, what I'll do, Daryl, when I find it, I'm going to send it to you privately, and then you can publish it. You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
can
I'll put it
post
up. Yeah, we'll talk about it. Yeah.
So then that will be food for thought for next week. But yeah, I don't, unfortunately, I don't have it. If I'd have known you were going to ask me today, I would have brought it with me, but I don't. But I definitely did do it.
Yeah. Stefan says here, Valdez could win via a Canelo Brown envelope on the night, but he said Shakur should be too good.
Yeah, he's going to be too good, though. It's going to be too good. I mean, listen, he's got all the advantages: height, reach, youth, speed. I think one of the advantages that Valdez does have is punch power, I believe. But, you know, listen, man, that means he's relying on a punch.
Yeah. So what are you saying? Are you saying Stevenson by decision or stoppage?
You know what? It could be a situation whereby same thing what happened with Jamel Herring, where
the referee steps in.
Either the referee or the corner steps in because he's shipping too much punishment. I reckon it could be one of those where, because you know Oscar Valdez, right?
He ain't gonna quit. Valdez
he's not gonna quit. He's when I say big, he's not big, but he's a strong, brave guy, and he's gonna give it his all. I've got absolutely no doubt in that. You know what I mean? I don't question his heart or his commitment at all, but I just do think that this has come at the wrong time for him. I do think that Shakur Stevenson is levels above him in terms of boxing skill. I mean, listen, Robinson Conceicao was easily outboxing Oscar Valdez at the start of their fight. You know what I mean? Like I said, he did claw back some rounds, but he was, in the first half of that fight, he was getting easily outboxed. And he lost that fight, in my opinion. Robson Conceicao is, you know, a bit older, but Shakur Stevenson is a young 24-year-old, not even hit his prime yet. I don't see him tiring like that. You know what I mean? And I do think that as well, Oscar Valdez without the herbal tea, you know what I mean? I just can't see it, though. I honestly can't see it. The only plausible way he has to win for me is if he lands an almighty left hook on Shakur Stevenson's chin and knocks him out. If he does that, you know what? Fair play to him. But I can't see any other way he wins. I can't.
Big up Beavis in the chat here. He says Shakur is getting knocked out. And he's also put here Serrano by unanimous decision. Big up Beavis. We're going to get onto that fight as well. Last thing I'll say on Valdez and Stevenson is I have a really high opinion of Shakur Stevenson. I've said it in here a lot of times and how highly I rate him. And just that I'm a fan of him and Devin Haney. The fact that they want all the smoke right now. The only thing, obviously, we know Stevenson has had issues outside of the ring previously. It seems like he's cleared that up now. But the one thing I didn't like is when he keeps referencing Mayweather and saying, yeah, you know, at 23, I'm doing this. Yeah, Mayweather at 23, you know, you can't really compare. I'm just like, yo, man, don't do this. Don't do this, man, because Floyd, he's done it over a level of time. You got to give the man his due, man. Don't compare yourself to Floyd right now. What Floyd's done at 23, 24 to what you've done at 23, 24. I know you're confident. I know, like, you know, you've got the ability. You definitely have the talent to go as far as possible, but just the comparisons with Floyd are not needed right now.
Yeah, I hear you on that, but you know what? It's probably a sign of his confidence. He's a young guy. And like I said, man, he's probably thinking at the moment, man, no one comes close to me. Sometimes, although it does sound a little bit corny, it's not always a bad thing for a fighter to have total belief in himself. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to knock him.
Floyd did it, didn't he?
When Floyd was on the come up,
yeah.
Listen, they all do it. When Floyd was on the come up, he was saying he was better than Sugar Ray Leonard, better than Ali, and we all went in on him for that. So I'm not really going to, you know, I'm not really going to bash him for that, to be honest. Although you are right, it is a little bit early for him to be making them comparisons, but I take it as a sign of his confidence.
Punch Smollett saying here, he's definitely trolling you again, Laurie. He said here, this is the man who picked White over Fury. I hope he is wrong again. If I got Punch Smollett here in the building. You've already said why you picked White. You didn't really.
Yeah, I mean, listen, anyone who watched that show will know. I remember I was picking ways that Dillian would win, and then you said, you know, come on, give me an opinion. And I said to you, okay, you're picking Fury, I'll go for Dillian White. But, you know, if Punch Smollett wants to take some props out of that, then fair enough. But listen, forget about Fury and White. I will bet him money if he wants. That's how confident I am. I will put money on it, that shot. And I'm not even a betting man. But I will put money on it that Not only does Stevenson win, but he wins handily. Unless it's an absolute carnage on the scorecards, which I guess with Eddie Reynoso and Canelo's team, I guess we do have to take that into consideration. But listen, man, I've studied the two fighters. I've watched Valdez for a while. I've been watching Shakur Stevenson since the amateurs. Like I said, man, there's a clear disparity in skill level. And I'm not seeing things Valdez in his last couple of fights that suggest to me that he's going to beat Stevens. I just don't.
Let's get on to the other fight this weekend, man. Huge fight taking place in Madison Square Garden between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. Some are labeling it as the biggest women's fight of all time. It is an undisputed fight for all the belts. Katie Taylor, the undisputed champion. Amanda Serrano, a 7-division world champion. You know, unreal. But like, these two are finally going to meet. We've spoken about this and how we felt about it. But is the time finally here where Katie Taylor takes an L? Is she right for the picking here with Amanda Serrano? Because Taylor has taken an L. Well, yeah, she should have against Pursoon, definitely. But I don't know. I'm kind of worried for Katie Taylor in this one because she's the slight favorite I saw on the odds, and I'm just like, I don't think people are seeing what. So, and that's just over here. I don't think like seeing compared to recent form, you have to pick Serrano over Taylor, man. If you're going,
yeah, I would. Although I was looking at some stats today, and there's not that much of an age disparity between the two fighters. Katie Taylor's 35, which is, let's face it, it's quite old. But Serrano's 33.
Yeah.
And Serrano's been a pro for a long time now. I think she's had over 40 fights. You know what I mean? So they're both very experienced in the ring. I would have to say the momentum is with Serrano. But I'm sure Katie Taylor will come and bring it. She would have trained very hard. Both of them would have done. But yeah, I'm leaning towards Serrano. Yeah, I mean, Katie Taylor's not looked brilliant in her last few fights. She's clearly past her best. We can all see that. Those of us who know the game can see that. I thought she lost both fights against Pursoon, by the way. The first one was absolute flat stone robbery. But even the second fight, man, I thought Pursoon landed more punches and was the aggressor and deserved the win. But hey, man, it is what it is. We all know what happened there. It's boxing politics 101. And even since those fights with Pursoon, I've looked at Katie Taylor. She's not quite been at it, really. Don't get me wrong. She's still, you know what I mean, lets her hands go and she's very committed in there and all the rest of it. But a lot of her work is very predictable. And I just don't see her beating Serrano, man. I think Serrano's the one with the momentum. She's the younger fighter, bit fresher. And I just think that she will be too much for Katie Taylor on the night. But it will be a competitive fight. I'm sure about that. It will be a good fight, I'm sure.
One thing Taylor will, I mean, she's going to be up for this. Do you know what I mean? So
well, they both will.
Yeah. I just think form may go out the window because she may put on at least another great performance and do what she needs to do to get the win. These two were actually supposed to fight a couple of years ago, weren't they? It didn't come through though because of the pandemic, I believe. But they were scheduled to fight, so it has been on the cards for a while. But
I think Katie Taylor's beaten Amanda Serrano's sister, hasn't she?
Yeah.
So they were talk about them two, Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor, fighting after Katie Taylor had beaten her sister some years back. Like I said, I think the momentum's with Serrano. She's taller, got a reach advantage, slightly younger, slightly fresher, despite her having more fights. And I'm looking at Katie Taylor, and she's kind of hit the peak and subsided a little bit. And I think that the timing is right for Serrano to beat her in what you're calling the biggest win, which I think is probably right, really, isn't it, so far? It's not the best fight in women's boxing for me. I think that is Clarissa Shields versus Savannah Marshall.
Eddie Hearn was asked about that in an interview. I don't know if you've seen it. And then he was like, put Clarissa Shields and Savannah Marshall in here and you'll see if it does any sort of numbers compared to what Taylor and Serrano does. That was his response.
Yeah, but Eddie Hearn just chats cap as a promoter, isn't he? Again,
does he have a point with that, though?
Maybe in terms of numbers, but listen, man, if you go throughout history, it's not always the fights that get the most numbers that are the greatest fights or the greatest fighters. You know what I mean? It's as simple as that. So,
Yeah.
but he's talking as a promoter of Katie Taylor. So I expect him to say that. But is it the truth? Is it an accurate statement? That's very much open to question. To me, and most people who follow the sport, Clarissa Shields versus Savannah Marshall is a far more attractive matchup. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I'm more looking forward to. I mean, look, I'm looking forward to Taylor-Serrano, but I'm looking if they were both on at the same night at the same time, and I could only watch one, I would watch Shields and Marshall.
Yeah.
I'm just a bit concerned with Taylor and Danger's talking about how she's been fighting in the last couple of fights, Katie Taylor. If she gets caught with leather from Serrano, we've seen what Serrano can do to opponents. Did you see that opponent that she fought and the woman's face? Her face was really bad, man. I was like, right, like she really put a beating on that. I didn't even see the fight, but I just saw them take a picture after, and I saw like her face afterwards, man, and it was just like, yeah, Serrano, she's for real.
But so to be fair, though, that opponent is not at the level of a Katie Taylor. She was very limited, that girl.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true. But if Katie Taylor gets caught with shots, which we've seen her getting caught with before, that could be a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before, even before today, I've said it, that Katie Taylor, to me, has regressed somewhat. I'm not saying it's been a drastic regression because she's still winning her fights. But if you look at the Katie Taylor now and look at her a few years back, I think you can clearly see it as well. That being said, Amanda Serrano's been around a long time too. She's no spring chicken. She's 33 years old. But I'm just looking at the two of them, and the momentum seems to be with Serrano. She looks really confident as well. She really fancies this fight. So I'm looking at her body language, and her body language looks very good, I have to say. Not that Katie Taylor's doesn't, but you know what I'm saying. Serrano does seem to be very up for this fight. It's in New York. She's going to have a lot of fans there. Katie Taylor's going to have a lot of fans here too. But I would suggest that Serrano, being a Puerto Rican extraction in New York, she's probably going to have more fans in the place. And I just think that it's all set up for her to win.
Yeah. Francisco says here, great fight, but at this point in their careers, Serrano is better at her game than Taylor is at hers. Serrano's precise and vicious combination punching will be the difference. Serrano by TKO, I have to agree. But is there anyone here that actually thinks Taylor will win? Because we're talking like Taylor's not, you know what I mean? We know how good she is and how accomplished she is and what she's done.
We know how good she's been.
Well, yeah.
I'm suggesting that she's not at that level anymore. I mean, I've seen her last couple of fights, and we've spoken, haven't we, Daryl? I've been underwhelmed by the performances, man. Maybe it could be that maybe she needs a fight like this to really get her up for it. Maybe she will say that she wasn't 100% motivated for some of those fights. That may well be the case. I guess we'll find out on Saturday. I mean, whatever happens, I am expecting her to be better than she's been in her last couple of fights. But in her last couple of fights, man, she's looked predictable. I haven't seen anything from her to suggest that she'll beat Serrano. Serrano, I think, will establish a jab. She'll be the quicker fighter. And I just think that she will piece up Katie Taylor with a jab in the early parts of the fight, and then she'll start to take over towards round 5, 6, 7. I think she'll take over. I don't think she'll stop Katie Taylor, but I think she'll be a worthy winner. Comfortable winner on the cards is what I'm picking.
Punch is saying that the press conference takes place today. We'll have to check that out, man. Listen, the two, they've got a lot of respect for each other. You're not expecting, obviously, there's never any trash talk and there don't need to be with a fight of this magnitude. But in terms of just boxing as a whole, man, I think that this is a great fight. All the belts will be on the line. You got two fighters, generational talents to both of them. So, renowned for their skill. I think it'll be a great event, man. And you see Eddie Hearn and Jake Paul pushing it. I think it will do good numbers. The undercard's pretty decent too. You've got Liam Smith on the undercard there, man, against Jesse Vargas. Not a bad fight. I'll be tuning into that.
Liam Smith in that fight.
Yeah, I see Jesse Vargas is now he's taken up politics now, hasn't he? Have you seen that?
Yeah. Going down that Manny Pacquiao route.
Yeah. So
but I just think that Liam Smith will have too much. He'll be too big and too strong for him. I mean, Jesse Vargas started his career as a light welterweight, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I just think that Liam Smith is big, solid dude, even for light middleweight. He's campaigned there all his life. He looked quite impressive in his last fight against Anthony Fowler, who's a big light middle, and he got him out of there. He did decent against Kurbanov. He thought he won that fight. I didn't think he won it, but, he did perform well. I just think he'll have too much for Jesse Vargas, who, as you suggested, Darryl, might have his eye on other things. It's not always a good idea to be have a distraction like that in your life, especially at this late stage in your career. And I'm picking Liam Smith.
Couple of comments and questions here before we go. Conscious we only got an hour today. DS has said here, I was strongly leaning towards Serrano until recently. I'm now starting to think a controversial Taylor win on points.
You know what? If that fight was taking place in this country or in the British Isles, I could have agreed with Dean on that. But the fact that it's taking place in New York, I've been there several times. I've been to fights in the Garden as well. Listen, there's a massive Puerto Rican population in New York, and they love their boxing. They will turn out. That being said, there is a big Irish population in New York as well, so they'll turn out too. But I think that the fact that there's a big Puerto Rican population in New York, and the fact that a lot of them will be attending this fight, I think lessens that kind of possibility that would be any skullduggery on the scorecards. Yeah. Plus, this is a massive fight. I just hope that nothing like in either way. You know what I mean? I hope that does not happen, man, because the eyes of the world will be on boxing this weekend with both those big fights. Serrano versus Taylor and Taylor-Stevenson versus Valdez. I sincerely hope that there's no funny business going on or any home cooking or anything like that. You can't put it past boxing because, it's boxing, isn't it? But let's hope not, man. I mean, the eyes of the world will be on the sport this weekend. Let's hope they don't screw it up.
Crawford Spence, who you got? That's from Callum. Big up Callum, man. The best fight that could be made in boxing right now, in my opinion, is that Crawford and Spence. We've said it on here before. Just a fascinating fight, man. I actually watched Spence and Ugas epilogue today on Showtime. It's been out for a few days, but I caught up with it today. Listen, man, Crawford for me, I'm going Crawford 55-45. I just think that overall, I'm just picking him to do it. But it's, you can't deny what Errol Spence has done. You can't deny he's a major threat as well. He's going to be bringing it. And the activity, Crawford can get hit. Errol Spence will be... You saw how he fought against Ugas, man. Errol Spence fought through the fire. And he really impressed me after that 6th round, man. He was wobbled. And then he came back and he thought, no, I'm stepping it up. If we're going to bring the heat, I'm going to come back with it. And he did. And Ugas couldn't live with it. So Crawford's capable... We've seen what Crawford's capable of, man. It's unreal at welterweight what he's done. Knocked everybody out so far. He was undisputed champion in the weight below. He's pound for pound for a reason. Laurie's number 1, definitely in my top 3. I favor him slightly, but it's one of them. It's just a great fight. You could just sit back and just enjoy, man, between two great fighters.
Yeah, I echo a lot of what you said there. Great fight. Like you said, the best fight in boxing to be made at the moment. I'm slightly edging towards Crawford. And it takes a lot for me to say that because I'm a big fan of Errol Spence and we do share a cultural heritage. But yeah, I've got to be true to myself. I'm leaning towards Crawford. It's going to be a tremendous fight. But what I would say is I was really impressed with Errol Spence's last fight. And it could come down to, Darryl, who executes their game plan better on the night. It really could because although I've got Crawford as a favourite, it's not by much. So, you know what I mean? If Spence gets his tactics right on the night and Crawford is even slightly off it, you could see an upset. Or is it even an upset? A lot of people are going for Spence, especially based on his last performance where he dominated and stopped Ugas. Not a lot of people saw that coming. A lot of people were saying that they thought Spence would edge it, but they thought it would be a close and competitive fight, and it was anything but really. A couple of rounds nip and tuck, but for the rest of it, man, Errol Spence absolutely beat Ugas up, stopped him.
Really did, man. Big up Denzel in the chat here. He's put, yes, my brothers, if Dillian was a footballer, he'd be diving all the time, talking about a push to Ras. Hey, man. Yeah, listen, Dillian didn't cover himself well.
You know what I found ironic about that? And again, it's going to look like I'm going in Dillian, but I have to say this, bro. Like, Dillian spent a lot of time clowning Deontay Wilder, laughing at him, you know what I mean, doing all he could to embarrass him. going on TV and, you know what I mean, chastising Deontay. But if you look at it, Deontay has had 3 fights with Fury, and in Fury fights 1 and 3, he performed creditably. Like the first fight, I will maintain to this day that Deontay should have won that fight. I actually thought he knocked Fury out. I thought Fury was a beneficiary of a long count. Okay, it's controversial, but I thought that the draw was probably a fair result. Okay, fair enough. Second fight, no doubt about it, Fury dominated Wilder and stopped him. But in that third fight, man, although Fury was the better man, there's no doubt about it, he stopped him. Good performance, but Wilder has moments in that fight, man. And he knocked Fury down a couple of times, and there's moments in that fight where you was thinking that Wilder could stop Fury. Now, you contrast that with Dillion's performance, where he barely laid a glove on Fury, didn't he? And now Dillion can say with a straight face that he thought the fight was close. I can only imagine that the concussion that he suffered must have lasted for a few days, because he was way off with that, you know what I mean? And I'm surprised that no one in his camp sort of didn't sit him down and say, look, Dillion, man, hate to break it, you were well beaten on the night. He was well beaten, bro. It was not close. He didn't win a single round. No. He did not win a single. We did the watch along, Daryl, and after every round, Robbie would say who got that round, and there was 4 of us on the panel that day, and every single one of us all said Fury, 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 Fury. And then in the 6th round, he dispatched them with ease. So
one judge gave Dillian Whyte 2 rounds in that. The third and the fourth.
Dean White.
I can't remember. Only a couple more questions.
You know with that judge, right? I think we need to examine his bank account, man, because I don't know where. How so? Someone make that make sense.
Yeah, the third and the fourth he gave to Dillian.
Even in the punch stats, it was a fairly low-scoring fight, to be honest, as some of Fury's fights are. But you read out the punch stats, didn't you, after when we did the Aftermath show?
Yeah.
And there was not one round where Dillian...
He never outlanded Fury in any of them.
No, in any round. So
he wasn't even close to. So
I don't even think Dillian landed a significant headshot in all the rounds, did he? I know he landed some body shots, and I know he landed some cuffs behind the head when they came up close. But I don't remember Dillian landing a significant headshot in the whole fight.
He didn't.
He threw a few jabs, some of which Fury caught on the gloves, and maybe the judge might have thought, oh, he landed, when he clearly didn't. So I don't know what they were watching.
Yeah.
It was a bad night for Dillian, man. He got outclassed in there.
Yeah. Big up Amari here. He says, big up the man, then big up to yourself, bro. Let me go to a couple more questions before we go. I won't be able to get through all of these. I'm sorry, guys, but Punch has said, how good is Yafai? I'm not familiar with him. And I'm guessing
very good, man. Very good.
Talking about Galal Yafai, isn't he? Because obviously he's fighting on Saturday.
The Olympic gold medalist. Yeah.
He's very good. Beavers, he's good, man. Yeah. He's not that good. He's average. He's an Olympic gold medalist. Come on, man.
Is he talking about Galal Yafai?
Maybe he's talking about another Yafai.
Because there are 3 of them. One of them, which as well has been a world champion. He got beaten by Chocolatita, I remember. So listen, man, as a fighting family, they're an outstanding family. Very talented. But the most recent guy that's turned pro, I forget his name, if it's Galal or Yama.
Galal.
He looks proper, man. He's going to do well. I mean, Eddie Hearn's talking about fast tracking him. So I expect him to be fighting for a world title within a year or 2. Couple of years max.
Amari Kambawa said here, Laurie, would you back yourself in the ring against your brother?
No comment. No comment, man.
Listen, guys, we're going to end it here. I'll just, Beavers has put here, Wilder would have killed White.
You know what? I always said that even when Dillian was campaigning for that fight, I always said that was not a good look for Dillian. And having seen the way he performed against Fury, where he struggled to come to terms with the height and reach, you got to say, man, that Wilder...
What about Wilder? Wilder struggled... Well, he put in a better performance than Dillian.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, I think if you look at the dimensions, Wilder's very tall, isn't he? 6'7". And you saw on Saturday how much Dillian struggled to cope with the height and reach. Dillian does struggle with. Remember his fights with Hellenius, where he didn't look that good. The fight with Marius Wack, when at one stage I thought Marius Wack was going to beat him. Remember that fight? He looked awful.
Yeah, he was poor in that fight.
I think he doesn't fight that well against really tall fighters. He did okay against Joshua for a couple of rounds, but ultimately he got knocked out. I think Wilder would have knocked him out, man. And I'm hearing some people saying that a good comeback fight for Dillian would be against Deontay Wilder. Listen, man, that would be not a wise decision, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I think they've got to be, if Dillian fights on, like I said, they've got to be very careful with the opponents, because if they get it even slightly wrong, he's going to get beaten.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think Dillian's past his best. He's starting to exhibit signs of being shocked. And I say that without any equivocation. I'm not trying to diss Dillian. It's just my honest opinion. I like the guy, but I think he's, yeah, man, he's well past his best. I think, listen, anyone in the top 15 heavyweights right now would beat Dillian. I'm going to say that out loud. I mean, okay. But I even said it to you, but even some of the upcoming guys like your David Adelaide's of this world will probably beat Dillian.
Yeah, right that's where I had to draw the line, man. The Adelaide one.
Okay. Listen, when
Adelaide, it was only a couple of fights. Remember a couple of fights ago, man, Adelaide should have took the L against Sokolowski. You remember that?
Yeah, but he's a young guy and he's improving, Darryl, whereas Dillian is on the way down. We all know the story of boxing, man. It's about timing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Dillian is looking like a shot fighter, bro. And if he goes in there with one of those young up-and-coming guys, let's face it, listen, if you're someone like an Adelaide, right, or anyone around that type of experience and youth, and you get the fight with Dillian, to you, that's like a world title fight. To Dillian, that's just a payday. That's the difference. Because Dillian's already fought. He's already reached his ceiling. So his motivation is going to be somewhat different to someone like Adelaide.
Callum ain't having it, man. He's saying,
okay. Listen, I see things, bro. The punch resistance is not there. The stamina is not there. The cognitive functions, the balance and stuff like that is not there. It's a bad sign, bro. And when you get in there with big, strong, young, hungry guys looking for a big name on their resume, doesn't make for a good night for Dillian, man. That's all I'm saying.
Big up Callum. He said he's leaving the chat. We'll chat to you later, man. Good to see you in here. Last one before we go. It's from our man Francisco. He said here, Robbie is a heavyweight. Laurie is a middleweight. What catch weight would you agree to, Laurie? What catch weight would you agree to if a fight with Robbie?
Listen, man, he's my younger brother. Why would I do that to my younger brother? Well, what can I say to my brother, man? I've been in a few like street beefs where he's been around. I can tell you, man, he's got a lot of heart. You know what I mean? He wouldn't swallow it. I can tell you that for I've seen him. You know what I mean? People have tried to gut check him, man, and I think they've been surprised at his reaction. So
I've seen it too.
Yeah, so you know what I mean? He will come to fight, put it that way.
Listen, guys, we're going to lock it off here, man. Big up to everyone in the chat, man. It's been a great show today. Really enjoyed it. Don't forget, on the way out, if you haven't hit the like button, hit that button. Share the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All of the people that are going to watch this a bit later, big up to you guys as well. And we'll be back next week. A lot to talk about. I'm going to probably do a show on Sunday as well. If you're around, Laurie, we'll talk about the Stevenson.
Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's do it.
Yeah, we'll do it on Sunday. Yeah.
During the day, but in the evening, I could certainly do that. Yeah, look forward
we'll
to
do that.
Listen, man, there'll be lots to talk about. I hope Punch Smollett is watching.
Yeah, man, Punch is here, man. Yeah.
Because I think he will be probably be apologizing to me come Sunday. I say, yeah, Laurie, you were right, man. Yeah, Shakur Stevenson proved himself to be on another level. Yeah, but listen, you know what? It's boxing, so, you know what I mean? Hypothetically speaking, anything could happen. That's why we're all going to watch the fight. But
yeah,
don't be surprised if Punch Smollett, don't be surprised if come Sunday you're apologizing to me and say, yeah, you know what, Laurie, you were right.
Beaver says here, Punch is my friend. But yeah, we'll look it off here. Thank you.
No, it's enough respect to Punch Smollett, man. He comes
yeah, I know. Yeah, it's all fun and games, man. I know
it's all good, man. It's all good. I don't take it personally. It's all good.
It's all fun and games. But yeah, listen, we'll catch up with you guys next week. Enjoy the fights. And no, we'll catch up with you guys on Sunday, should I say. Enjoy the fights up until then. Have a good evening, people, and we'll see you guys soon.
Ditto. Likewise.